Greetings everyone, my name is Steele and welcome back to Buried. On our last adventure we finally made it into the hangar, but we were also followed by a large group of entities. A fight for our lives ensued, resulting in Dennis becoming gravely injured. However, we still managed to escape inside the isolation chamber. And now we are going to pick things up with the final chapter, Chapter 5. We are now inside a large reinforced chamber of sorts, almost like the inside of a submarine. Near us is the door, shut tight. Far away from us along the back wall are all sorts of controls and monitors. It seems clear that this metal door is impenetrable, at least to them. I'm fairly sure that they aren't getting in. Dennis looks like a walking corpse, and I do everything in my power to not let this show in my expression. His face in a grimace, he shouts out at me, "To hell with you! What were you thinking?" Blood pools on the floor below wherever he holds his arm. I say nothing. It's all too much. My brain feels like jelly. "We need to get him some help or he's going to bleed to death," Amy says. We are interrupted by a man's voice booming behind us. "Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?" the man roars. He's an older man who seems to exude power and authority, but he also looks tired and scared. I assume this is Barksdale. He walks over to us from the back recess of the chamber. "We didn't have a choice," Amy responds. "We had to." "Did you override the locks on the hangar doors?" Barksdale demands. "Yes, I did, but we had to. Do you have any idea what you could have done?" Amy doesn't answer right away. She is furious, but she is also scared and visibly exhausted. "Who is this?" "Stay quiet." I feel like we should just stay quiet because he's clearly pissed, and we already assumed it's Barksdale, and we assumed correctly, so there's no point in asking dumb questions. "Look, Barksdale," she says, "you can berate me and lecture me all you want when this is over. But right now, I have a wounded civilian here, and as you can see, several entities trying to get into this room. So if you could actually do something instead of sitting on your throne and yelling at me, that would be great." I'm impressed with her guts and wonder if there is some sort of beef between the two of them. Surely working in a place like this could cause some stress and tension between people. As we wait, I notice a small peephole in the door. I go to it and look out to the things. They're still looking for a way in, but finding no success. I wonder if they can sense or somehow see me through the window. Flip them the bird, do nothing. "Hey, we're here." "Fuck are you, entities?" I can't help myself. I hold up my middle finger to one and smile defiantly. I get a blast of high-pitched sound in response. "You'll be reprimanded for speaking to me in such a way," Barksdale says to Amy. "Reprimand me all you want. I'd like to survive this first." "Cover your ears," Barksdale shouts, walking away towards the far end of the room. "Stay put until you hear back from me." "Thank you," Amy says with fire in her voice. She then turns to me and says, "Better do what the man says." "Cover ears? Why?" No, let's just cover our ears. We don't ask stupid questions." I clap my hands over my ears just in time to protect my hearing from a deafening blast. I am still bleeding, and the sudden movement to cover my ears makes me feel dizzy. Dennis clumsily covers one ear with his hand and one ear with his bandaged arm. When I see the shape he is in, I get myself in check. Compared to Dennis, I'm in tip-top shape. I did that. I took the shot that took his hand off. I need to make all of that mean something. More bursts of a loud explosive noise start ringing out. Looking through the peephole again, I see the core of one of the beasts explodes. It vanishes in a puff of smoke and clear liquid. Looking to my left, I see Barksdale in a shooting stance at the far side of the room. He's firing through a small slit in the wall. He's using some high-powered weapon, the likes of which I've never seen. I see a slight movement as the gun kicks, accompanied by a flickering of white light. Immediately, another monster is downed, its tentacles flailing around aimlessly as most of its core is torn through. I instantly feel gratitude and an immense satisfaction in knowing that they are being picked off in such a way. Continue watching, sit down, and rest. As thrilling as it would be to watch these things get annihilated, we actually have a time to take a breather, so let's do just that. I slide down against the door and simply wait, listening to the occasional patter of what I assume is their blood on the wall. I don't know how much time passes, maybe 5 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, and I don't care. It feels nice to lie down. When the firing is over, I barely even notice it. Soon after, Barksdale walks back over to our side of the room. "They're all gone," Barksdale says, "and I have resealed the hangar doors." "How'd you kill them like that?" I ask. "Classified weapons that, quite frankly, you have no business being near." Amy gets to her feet and returns to the panel on the wall. "Thanks." "How badly are the civilians hurt?" Barksdale asks. "One is in very bad shape," Amy says. "He's lost a hand and a lot of blood. The other is not too bad. I see a laceration on his back and that's about it." "Okay, I'll have Strickland get a medkit." Strickland survived? Amy asks, sounding cheerfully. Yes, and until you and your friends showed up, I thought we were the only ones. Hang tight, she's on her way. With that said, he retreats away to the back of the room, as if he can't stand to be around us. Amy approaches me and looks me over. You're in good hands. Strickland will be able to fix you up. Is she a doctor or something? Sort of. She's also a physicist. But oddly enough, she spent time as a trauma nurse in the army. Is Strickland a friend of yours? I ask. Amy chuckles. Yeah, we've known each other for a while. The only woman in a sea of overachieving men. Barksdale sounds like a prick. You must be glad Strickland survived. Yeah, Barksdale sounds like a prick. That's because he is, Amy says, but he runs this place, and he sort of has the right. Yeah, Washington or a facility buried under the woods of Kentucky, gender roles stay the same, she says, rolling her eyes. Within a few seconds, the door behind us opens, and a woman appears from back further in the chamber. She enters the room with what looks like a small suitcase. She is dressed in a very basic and drab military getup, complete with a holstered sidearm. My name is Connie Strickland, she says. I can patch you guys up pretty well, but it's going to hurt. She looks closely at Dennis, looking him over with precise care and attention. You're not in the best shape. Ugh, he responds with a grunt. Seriously, I can fix you up, but only temporarily. You need intensive care for that arm. First things first, though. Strickland pours a liquid over his maimed arm and starts stitching. She then wraps his arm with 3 entire spools of gauze. Blood shows through right away. That's the best I can do for now, she tells him, giving him a sympathetic frown. I could care less, Dennis mutters. I'm a cripple. Do whatever you want, as though it matters. Strickland then looks to me. Sit down and let's see if we can get your shirt off, she says. I sit down slowly and start unbuttoning my shirt. She has to help me slip it off my shoulder. But we manage. How bad is it? I ask. Bad, she answers. It's almost like a burn, but I've seen much worse. Your friend here, for example. I might as well talk to Strickland, if only to distract from the pain. What's your story? You're a scientist too? Yeah, what is your story? Strickland rolls her eyes as she gathers up a needle and some thread. I was always into fringe science. I started in labs where these eccentric Russian scientists were being funded by the US to work on combining DNA types. I sort of became obsessed with perfecting human physiology while I was a trauma nurse in the army. You were a mad scientist then? I say. I get that a lot, but no, not compared to the stuff they do here. What kind of stuff? It's complicated. Komar masses, quantum gravity, crunching things down into their Schwarzschild radiuses. Fun stuff. Yeah, a mad scientist, I say, trying to keep myself calm with dry humor. There are lots of small labs working on this same stuff, she argues. They just don't have our funding. When you guys ran in here, she says, I was horrified. Those barrels outside? I'm not sure if you saw them. Well, if you'd shot them, they could have been bad. Why? I ask. The gray ones are filled with an experimental fuel that is highly flammable. The yellow ones contain liquid nitrogen. What? I ask. Just lying around? Well, this area is the safest in the building, the most secure. Well, it used to be anyway. And take this, she says, handing me 4 pills. Painkillers. They won't work immediately, but they'll dull the worst of what you're feeling. Are these the best idea, I ask? Won't they make me dizzy or out of sorts or something? All I get in response is an annoyed and determined look. Take the painkillers, don't take the painkillers. I mean, given the nature of my wound, the painkillers could help, but I'm going to run the risk of them dulling my senses, and I want to stay sharp in case we ever have to exit this room and we get chased down by more of those entities. Because the ones in the hangar may be gone, but there's no telling if there are actually more out there. So I'm going to not take them. You refuse the painkillers. Really, I say, I don't want to get lightheaded in case we have to move fast. I can handle it. Your call, Strickland says as she starts working on me. She slathers the wound with some sort of liquid that stings like crazy, and I gasp. Grin and bear it. We are the bravest of boys. No liquidy healing goop is gonna hurt us. Ready to stab me yet? Strickland asks. I'm fine, I hiss. I wince as she dabs at my eye, swollen from where Marcus kicked me. I grit my teeth in pain and try to catch my breath. Dennis comes out of his haziness and tries speaking to Strickland, but his words are slurred. White light from the ground, Dennis says. You think that caused a power outage? Think that brought the monsters out? Could be, Strickland says, but your crew was far enough away from the facility, or at least we thought you were. Dennis chuckles in a way that makes him sound menacing. Nope. Wrong. You thought wrong. So you and Barksdale are the only survivors? Amy asks. It seems that way. Those that didn't disappear into thin air were killed by those things, Strickland says, nodding to the secured door. How many were killed? No one else made it? Let's ask, I kind of want to ask both. They're both important, but... yeah, I want to see... I guess no one else made it? Not that I've seen, Strickland says. If anyone else did make it, they're trapped out there with those things. I'm glad to see you. Where were you when it happened? Amy asks. I was in the microlab on level 2, Strickland replies. Park and O'Brien were in there with me, and they just disappeared. It looked like they were being stretched, distorted, and then there was a ball of white light and they were gone. The ball of light just annihilated everything it touched. Would it leave a perfectly round hole, I ask, a light bulb turning on in my head. We saw some of those up at the logging site. Yeah, and I saw a ball of white light too, Dennis chimes in. That was probably the same phenomenon, Strickland replies. Amy looks at the ground like a child that is afraid to ask an adult for something. Finally, she asks, where did they go? We don't know, Strickland says. It could be an infinite number of different dimensions, or even some dimensions that merge and mix together. It could also be a place that exists between dimensions. Barksdale calls it the void. How is that possible? I'd call it dead. We don't know that just yet, Strickland says. Our understanding of space-time is evolving. Especially when you start warping it like we have been doing, Amy adds. That point seems to be the end of the conversation as both women fall quiet. I wince through the rest of Strickland's stitching, feeling the tug of my skin, but thankfully no more flowing blood. Finally, Strickland says, you're good to go. She looks over Dennis one more time. He doesn't so much as stir when she rechecks her work. She's already having to remove the gauze on his wrist, as it is soaked through with blood. The wound looks like it's starting to clot, so that's a good at least. I stare at the floor as Strickland does what she can. Will he make it? I ask. I'm not a doctor, Strickland says. Not really, but based on the bit I do know, I'd say it's about 50-50 right now. So have you and Barksdale been able to contain all those creatures? Amy asks. Strickland appears shocked, clearly not the reaction Amy was expecting. Contain? Are you nuts? Do you not know what's happening? Amy's eyes widen in fearful confusion. What do you mean, what's happening? Other than the initial experiment failure. The anomalies are becoming more numerous and further from the source, Strickland says. The casual humor in her voice has now gone. What anomalies? Further from the source. What source? From the location of the original experiment, she says. The experiment caused the first doorway to open, but it set off a chain reaction. They are gaining momentum along geodesics emanating from the facility. It's these pockets of exotic matter and negative energy that are letting those things in. What the hell does that mean? Dennis asks. It means, Amy chimes in, that those doorways and monsters are starting to appear all over the facility, maybe even the surface. Not yet, luckily, Strickland says, but the doorways will start appearing on the surface and it won't stop there. The anomaly's reach could extend infinitely as far as we know. Those entities will appear on the surface, in other states, other countries. Holy shit, I say. You mean the world is going to be overrun? The horror of the past few hours has me ready to believe anything, but this is almost too much. Unfortunately, yes, Strickland says. My God, Amy says, stepping away. Isn't there anything we can do? There is a last resort, Strickland says, her eyes darting over to Barksdale at the back of the room. There's an emergency failsafe switch. What? Amy says. I never heard of that. Where? You weren't cleared for it, Strickland replies. And that switch, Amy says, is a way to stop this? Yes, Strickland says, seeming uneasy with the conversation. What does the switch do? Why haven't you hit the switch already? Let's ask what this does before we go making plans of flipping anything. The switches are a eraser, she says. It destroys the entire facility and terminates any systems or experiments that are being conducted. It's also an emergency shutdown for interdimensional travel. It puts an event horizon around the facility. What the hell is that? I ask, incredulous. It's the perimeter of a black hole, she replies, the boundary inside which nothing can escape, not even light. But there's two problems with hitting the switch. So the first problem is we'd all be killed, sucked into a black hole before we'd have time to evacuate. The second reason, Strickland whispers, suddenly quiet, is that Barksdale won't allow it. What? Amy gasps. Why not? He wants to allow those things to flood the surface? Thousands, millions will die. Strickland puts her hand up, silencing Amy. They both peer over to the far side of the room where Barksdale has his back turned. I know. He says he doesn't care. He says he'll be happy to be rid of the oversight so he can continue his work. The oversight? Amy almost screams, regaining control over her voice when Strickland gives her another look of warning. You mean our government? I ask. He's aware this could disrupt, even topple our government, and he doesn't care? Strickland sighs. Barksdale is, well, he's off the range right now. He's gone rogue, and he's armed. This comment makes me look towards the handgun I brought in with me. I'd nearly forgotten it in the last few moments. While Barksdale has his back turned, I take it in my hands and slide it behind me. Just in time, too, as Barksdale walks over from the back of the room to our side of the chamber. He gives Strickland a suspicious look before speaking to her. Are the two civilians going to survive? He asks. Dennis chuckles at this, and I am relieved to see that his eyes are opened. He gives a lazy thumbs up. One is stitched up and good to go, but the other here is in bad shape. He needs immediate medical attention. Understood, Barksdale says. Amy, it's quite nice to see that you have survived, he says. Were there any others? The aloof way this asshole is talking to us is getting under my skin. A guy named Marcus that works on the first level. From IT, Amy says. That's all I know for sure. Marcus Papscott, Barksdale says. Where is he? We're not sure, I say. He was separated from us. Oh, Barksdale replies, clearly taken aback by my stern reply. That's unfortunate. Barksdale seems to think about something and then looks directly at me. You're with the logging crew, aren't you? Remind me, how did you get in here again? We were searching for our crew through a building on the surface. I mean, both answers are correct, but for a more direct means, yeah, through the building on the surface. Ah, makes sense. The cloaks for the entrance shed are tied to a primary source, Barksdale says, and we lost primary power just before the experiment failed. Cloak? I ask. Yes, Strickland says. The shed you entered is usually not visible to the naked eye. Depending on the power sources that were damaged, Barksdale continues, it could have also shut down the locking systems before backups kicked in. Everything is starting to make sense now. From the very start, it had seemed peculiar that we'd so easily be able to walk into a place like this. Where's the rest of our crew? What caused the experiment to fail? Again, I want to ask both of these questions, but I can only pick one. I want to know where the rest of our crew is, but I want to know what caused the experiment to fail. Your crew hit one of our main power lines. We aren't sure exactly how, but we know that's what did it. Oh, my bad. You're trying to blame all of this on me? I roar. The timing was unfortunate, Barksdale says. Where is the rest of our crew? So what now? Alright, now we can ask where the rest of our crew is. Your crew? Barksdale asks. Frank and Joe? They're gone. Gone? Gone where? Dennis asks, his voice trembling. They were annihilated by antimatter pockets created during the failure. A bright ball of light destroyed them. In the aftermath, all you'd see would be a round hole in the ground. Barksdale says this like he's sharing yesterday's sports scores. I let my face crumble into my hands. I had suspected this. All this time, they were already dead. Behind me, Dennis lets out the beginning of a sob. Damn it. Damn it, he mutters over and over. So, Amy asks, what do we do now? Now it's time to continue our work, Barksdale says calmly, turning away to the instruments on the near wall. You're insane? Keep quiet. Let's not insult him at all. We are dealing with a lunatic fringe, and he's armed. This guy sounds like a complete lunatic, see, like I said. But he's a lunatic that's accustomed to power and armed with some type of advanced weaponry, see? Like I said. So I keep my intentions unspoken, assuming Barksdale is used to going unchallenged by people he considers beneath him. He certainly seems like that type. I want to continue my work, Barksdale muses. Other researchers will eventually discover what we have, sure. But I want it to be me. This is my laboratory. These are my experiments. The work I've led here will earn me my place in history. And quite frankly, I don't need to explain it to you. Up on the surface, they'll struggle to defend themselves since they won't know what they're dealing with. I have the necessary weapons. After a few months, who knows? Maybe I'll decide the world is ready for me to help them, and they'll go from there. He turns his back to us as he says this, walking to the far side of the chamber, like we're some kind of distraction. Amy takes this opportunity to whisper to me. We need to hit that switch, she says. It's the only option. What he's saying, it's murder, treason, genocide. She looks over to Strickland for support, trailing off. But Strickland looks at the ground, clearly torn. She won't look anyone in the eye and makes an effort not to look at Barksdale. He seems distracted with whatever instruments he's studying on the far side of the room. At this moment, I realize my body feels like a bomb went off inside it. Maybe those painkillers wouldn't have been so bad. Strickland finally whispers a response. Even if we decide that we want to hit that switch, Barksdale won't allow us. We can figure something out. To hell with him. You know what? Yeah, to hell with him. Amy agrees. Where is the switch located, she asks. There's an elevator out in the hangar, Strickland says. Take it to the basement. The switch is at the end of a long tunnel. But Strickland never finishes. Two things happen at once as she speaks. Her mouth stopped in mid-sentence. First, a loud booming noise rings out, and then the top of her head seems to explode. Amy screams out in surprise, and Dennis and I jump back in shock as Strickland's body collapses beside me. Behind her fallen body, Barksdale is holding his experimental rifle, and now he's pointing it at us. Told you this guy was fucking insane, man. I wonder if Barksdale is even crazier than Marcus. He's just shot a woman that worked for him to keep her quiet. Surely he won't have an issue with killing me. Now, Barksdale yells, no more whispering, no secrets. You three will stay in here. And get away from that door. If anyone whispers one more thing, I'll blow your heads off. My mind is racing to figure out a way to get through the secured door and into the hangar. Beyond that, of course, there was the failsafe switch. Insult Barksdale, make a distraction. Why is this even an option? The man is pointing what I can only guess is a sort of railgun. And you want to insult him? Are you kidding me? We're going to make a distraction. I try my best to be a good actor as I wobble on my feet a bit. I stop, start forward again, and then wobble some more. Amy is apparently catching on because she is at my side in a second. She looks over to Barksdale and says, he's lost a lot of blood. Let me check his wounds really quick. After he dared to talk to me like that? He's been through a lot, she argues. He's clearly delusional. Dennis seems to not quite know what's going on, but luckily Barksdale isn't paying attention to him. You can check him back here, Barksdale says. You have 30 seconds to get away from that door, or I will. I stretch out my acting skills and actually stumble to a knee. I make a show of trying to get to my feet and stand still for a moment. I'm okay, I say. I'm okay. As quickly as I can, I raise my gun and fire. I don't even take aim. I just fire in Barksdale's general direction. Barksdale takes off running as my shot misses wide. He runs for cover to the back of the room. That's all we need. Amy also fires a shot to keep him under cover as we head for the door. Amy pushes a button and the door swings open. Barksdale will be on us in a second, so we dash out into the hangar, ready to defend ourselves. Now shit just got real. All three of us run as fast as we can through the rows of barrels. Right away, though, Barksdale's gunfire separates us. I hear a shot hit nearby as I dive down and realize that neither Dennis nor Amy is with me. I hear Amy cry out from elsewhere in the barrels. Peering around the barrel closest to me, I can see Dennis. He's crawling slowly on the floor 2 rows away from me. Seeing him move so slowly, I can't imagine how he's finding the strength to even do that. Stop this nonsense, Barksdale yells at us. I've got a good mind to shoot the fuel and kill all of you. It's then that I realize that not getting away from these barrels may be our death sentence. Tell them to get away, run away. No, we gotta inform them to get the fuck away from these as quickly as possible. Before I can do anything, a shot comes from the isolation chamber. It's immediately followed by a pinging sound and a massive wall of heat. I feel the heat before I feel the force of the explosion. It occurs several rows ahead of me, and I can still feel the physical push of it. I hear Dennis scream, and then the clanging of metal. That's when another barrel explodes, and then another. I realize that I could run back and help, or try to get myself clear. I might not have enough time to do either before the next round of eruptions. What the hell should I do? Run back to help Dennis and Amy? Run away in the other direction? We gotta try to help them as best we can. You decide to run into the flames for help. My instinct to help overcomes my instinct to survive. If I don't help them now, the exploding barrels will leave Dennis and Amy as good as dead. I turn and start heading their way, but I'm not quick enough. Another barrel blows up between us and throws me back across the hangar floor. My face and arms scream with the unimaginable pain of deep burns as I am lifted from the ground and tossed forward by the explosion. I slowly muscle myself off the ground and try to regain my footing. My entire body feels sore, begging me to just stop. When I look back for Dennis and Amy, the scene is not promising. Neither of them seems to be able to move on their own. Dennis is lying flat on his face, unmoving. Amy is about 20 feet away from him. She's wailing in pain and clutching her leg. Behind them, I can see Barksdale looking for a shot through the fire and evaporating liquid nitrogen. I fire off a single shot just to get him to duck back down. I look back out to Dennis and Amy and see the fire nearing the fuel barrels. I can maybe keep Barksdale pinned down long enough to pick them up one by one and help them walk to the elevators, but more barrels could blow any moment. I might only have time to save one of them. Help Dennis first, help Amy first. You're gonna make me choose? Really? Oh, no. Oh, this fucking sucks. I hate it when stories make me do this. Alright. Under normal circumstances, Dennis would be the first one I would go to. He's my work buddy. I've known him longer. He's been with me since the very beginning. And he's the only survivor from my work crew. Amy, however, has a daughter. She knows this facility more than anyone else other than Barksdale. Dennis is bleeding out slowly. He is not in the best of shape. Strickland even says it's a 50-50 chance that he will survive unless he gets immediate medical attention. We don't know how long that's going to be until we get the hell out of here and we can get him to a hospital. Amy, as far as we're concerned, she is clutching her leg, so that means she must have severe burns on her leg. She can survive that easy. This is such a gut-wrenching decision. I can't believe I'm being torn in half like this. Okay. I'm sorry, Dennis, but given your current state, even if I got you away, you could just bleed out later on, and it's like I described earlier when I decided to leave him behind in the forest, that if he drops dead or collapses from pure exhaustion because of his build, I'm going to struggle to pick him up and drag him the rest of the way out of here. With Amy, she's a smaller build. I could just hoist her up under my arm and carry her along with me. I'm sorry, Dennis. I gotta go with Amy. You chose to help Amy first. I take a deep breath and sprint back out into the open among the flames and the heat. Right away, I start taking blind shots at Barksdale. He fires back only once, and the shot goes off into the growing fire around me. I take one more shot and then reach down for Amy. She's coughing and looks dazed. Her leg has been burned and scraped badly. You okay? I ask. She only nods as I help her to her feet, the fire licking up around us. I help her towards the elevator, narrowly avoiding the fire and hot death. Somewhere through the smoke, Barksdale shoots into the flames. He gets another shot off as we round the corner and to where the elevator awaits. Amy leans against the wall, gasping for breath. Drenched in sweat and feeling like I've just escaped the furnace, I know I have to try to get Dennis as well. I wheel around, gun aimed into the smoke, and head back out. I only get a single step before I see Dennis slowly getting to his feet. I open my mouth to call out to him, but another explosion right beside him cuts me off. He's engulfed in flames. It's over. I scream and run out for him, but Barksdale is firing at me again. After everything, Dennis is gone. Because of Barksdale, a raving lunatic. I scream at him as hatred and rage rise up in me. I want to rip Barksdale to shreds, no matter the cost. Escape through the elevator, kill Barksdale. Okay, now, given that if killing Barksdale is immediate and I do get lucky and manage to shoot him dead, I want to take that chance. I want to get revenge on Dennis. Yes, it's my fault he died because I went for Amy first, but because Barksdale didn't fire upon the entities as we were running through the hangar, and he saw them coming too, you figure he would have just went pure defensive mode and started blasting at them to make sure we could get into the room unscathed. I wouldn't have to have shot Dennis's hand off, and he wouldn't have been in that physical state that I put him in. So, this whole current situation we're in with the fucking fire and brimstone and dealing with walking through literal hell, this is all on him, so I'm gonna kill Barksdale. Because fuck him. I start unloading bullets in Barksdale's direction like I'm on a warpath. Barksdale, you son of a bitch! I scream as I start to head in his direction. I barely hear what sounds like a laugh start to emerge out of him when I'm jerked back behind the cover of the elevator entrance. He's gone, Roger. I'm sorry. He's gone. Amy pleads as she forces me behind cover. I resist her for a moment and then give in. Just as another deafening shot takes out a chunk of concrete a foot over my head. The best way to get back at Barksdale for what he's done is to flip that switch, Amy says. My nerves are drenched in fear and adrenaline. When I reach out to press the call button on the elevator, it feels like I'm watching someone else do it. As Amy and I step inside, the motors of the elevator squeal like dying dogs. The elevator slides down and the light from the flames gives way to complete blackness. And then it's just me and Amy. Dennis is gone. Dennis, I'm sorry. What have I done? I lose track of how long the elevator descends. It's hard to tell due to the lack of lighting, but it must go another 500 feet underground. The elevator comes to a stop with a shuddering clang, and I waste no time exiting. A tunnel stretches out with sparse white bulbs lighting the way. Most of the wall is made of raw earth and rock, but there are boards and concrete slathered in areas used to reinforce the tunnel. I see a warning sign posted on the wall. I want to read it, but there's not much time. Read notice on the wall. No, let's just head through the tunnel. We don't have time to read. There's no reading. There's no time. That switches down the tunnel, and it has to be flipped no matter what. After only a few steps, the pain in my back intensifies. How stupid was I to turn down those painkillers? I look up, and when I see that the tunnel ceiling is less than 6 inches over my head, claustrophobia freezes me for a moment. The ceiling is not high at all, and there is barely enough room for Amy and I to walk side by side. Which is for the best, because her leg is clearly causing her a great deal of pain. She's soaked in blood and hobbling along. I don't think I can go any further, she says, wincing, but trying to keep her composure. Sit down, I tell her. I'll be back. There's no sense in chancing furthering injury to your leg. She nods and I help her down. She shudders in pain as she eases into a sitting position on the floor. Thanks, she says. The switch should be at the end of this hall, if Strickland was right. I look up, and when I see that the tunnel ceiling is less than 6 inches over my head, claustrophobia freezes me for a moment. Why did that repeat itself? That's weird. Still, it is much better than facing the monsters above me. I wonder then, walking through the darkness, where they came from. Is the portal still open? It's almost completely dark. I hold the gun in one hand and reach out to touch the wall with the other. Feeling the gun there in my palm anchors me to reality, to sanity, and I'm not in some boundless abyss, but still in the real world. For a little while longer, at least. I recognize that I am marching to my end. As much as I wish I weren't, it's not surprising. For the moment I saw what those creatures could do to time and space, at least a part of me knew that death was inevitable. Before I have time to wonder what will happen, I see a light ahead. It's nothing more than a speck of blue light, but in the darkness of the tunnel, it's like a lighthouse in a stormy sea. I slog forward, my eyes straining to focus on that little light ahead. From somewhere ahead, I start to hear something that sounds like water. It is trickling lightly, like a leaky faucet. And behind that, there is something that sounds like wind, a light breeze through an open field, and a voice. Anywhere else, the sounds would have been pleasant, but here in the blackness of the tunnel, they're menacing. Hello? Stay quiet. Nope, even up to the very end, we are going to practice the act of being as quiet as the grave. I don't make a sound, instead try to make sense of what's going on around me. I cock my head, trying to concentrate, and then realize that I can see the tunnel walls now. This is odd, as I wasn't able to see them a few seconds ago. This is different from the blue light at the end of the tunnel. It's then that I see the slight shimmering in the air. It looks like a foggy mirror steamed over after a shower. And it's moving, dancing in the air like some abstract firefly. It's not menacing like the creatures, so that threat is null. It's peaceful, serene. I watch as this shimmer branches out and becomes 2, then 3, then 4. They snake out in different directions, tracing the tunnel walls. Are these shimmers the doors to another dimension that Strickland was talking about? Suddenly, I'm surrounded by light above and below me and realize there's no avoiding it. The question is, how am I going through? Going head first? Going feet first? Hell no, we're already in the thick of it. Jumping head first. What's the worst that can happen? I stick my head through and feel a tingling sensation, almost pleasant. I reach out slowly, my hand stretching out to one of those shimmers of what I can only assume is some kind of light. They're hypnotizing, so much so that I don't realize that the tunnel walls are vanishing. I feel something like wind and a brief electrical pulse pass through me as the lights take me. There is then a very gentle pushing sensation, and I somehow know that I am being expelled. I have passed through something, maybe the lights, maybe the tunnel walls, I don't know. But the shimmering lights fade a bit, still dancing in the air but no longer large and branching out. As my eyes adjust, I see right away that I am no longer standing in that dark tunnel far beneath the hangar. I have no idea where I am. I'm just somewhere else. And I'm terrified. What in the fiery hell? The ground I land on looks like hot coals. There are dips and many cliffs breaking the landscape ahead of me. There's a wash of orange and blue overhead in a sky that makes no sense. It is both beautiful and terrifying at once. A scattering of stars hang overhead and they all seem to be breathing, pulsing with a gentle energy, as if alive. I can't tell if there are clouds in this sky because everything about it, from the colors to the trembling horizon line, seems to be amorphous. Everything is knitted together, living. I stare a moment longer and can swear I feel the sky breathing. Far off to my right, I see what looks to be a plume of fire, small yet bright, with no source of fuel. It looks as if the ground itself is creating the flame. Several more of these flames dot the landscape further out. The air is thick and muggy. Then I realize something horrible. I don't know if what I'm breathing here resembles air at all. In a place like this, one of impossible beauty but also very stark horror, my mind doesn't know what to do. A wave of nausea comes over me, and I think I might be sick. I'm not sure if it would be better to fight it or give in. The white light that brought me here is nowhere to be found. Is anyone else even here? Is there any way to escape? Yell out for help? Look around the area. Alright, we don't know where the hell we are. Yelling out for help and making our presence known, not the best of ideas. Let's look around some more. I continue to look out at this nightmarish landscape and see a few other unexplainable oddities. There are billowing flames in the distance, not like a volcano or explosions, just some kind of slow heat crawling upward that defies reality. This analogy seems more fitting when I see the thin, vein-like roots of the fire twisting into the ground and then darting back out in all directions. I get that sick feeling again in my gut and realize my mind just needs something to focus on. It's then that I hear a voice. It is faint, distant. I turn and hear it coming out of one of the massive crevices along the ground. Inside of that crack, about 10 feet down, a very pale man lies on a ledge. He is human, but looks close to death. He is in the center of a large pool of blood, and his left leg has been twisted and torn in an unnatural way. As I walk to the ledge, he looks up and sees me. "Help me, please," the man says. His eyes are wide, although everything about him speaks of weakness. He is close to death or insanity, or both. "Who are you?" "I'm Dr. Kana," he strains to get out. "I work in the facility. Please, help." I want to know more, but it seems cruel to steal what looks like his last breath just to answer my questions. "I'd love to," I respond, "but I don't know where the hell I am or how to get home." "The light," he says. "It's a doorway. It might take you back to the facility." Might? Or where did it go? "They come and go. They'll be back. Now please, help me." I desperately want to help, but there's no way I can reach him. His ledge is too far away above the pools of fire. "I don't think I can get to you," I say. "No, that's not what I mean," he replies. His eyes are on the handgun that I almost forgot I am still holding. I realize what he wants and I shake my head. "I can't," I say. "I can't do that. Please," he pleads. "Those things, they have the others that came here with me. I got dropped along the way. They'll be back. They'll be back and they'll kill me. That," he says again, indicating the gun, "will be quicker, less painful." "I can't," I repeat. "Please, look at my damn leg. I'm dead anyway." I'm about to refuse him again when I hear an all too familiar static sound out from another crevice behind him. I hear another of those shrill noises and then watch as one of the monsters materializes up out of the neighboring crevice. 2 more come out after it, then a third, then 5, then 10. Soon I lose count as what was just a few turns into a flood. And I suddenly understand the man's reasoning. A bullet would be a mercy. I check the gun to see that I have only 1 round left. I can use it on this guy, but I may need it for myself later. From beside me, the man pleads again. "My God," he says, a waver of lunacy in his voice. "Please, shoot him or don't shoot him." I kind of want to give him the mercy, but at the same time, taking the time to aim and shoot at him could result in those creatures running up on me. "I'm sorry, man, I can't." "You did not shoot the man." "I'm so sorry," I say. "I can't." What I don't tell him is that I'm in a situation where I have to keep this 1 bullet. I can't waste it on him. He whimpers a bit and I look away, unable to see the misery on his face. Behind me, I hear him give a mix between a scream, mixed with the high-pitched noises of the army of creatures. Their volume rises as he lets out a cry after cry. I clench my teeth as the torture continues. Then suddenly his voice is silenced and the only sick static sound remains. And that's when I see the shimmers wavering to my right, in the direction I originally came from. I look back to the monsters and see that they have now noticed me. Some of them begin floating up the walls of the crevice. There are less than 10 feet separating us. The shimmers of white light are within arm's reach. Its movements reminding me of a fish in an aquarium. I reach out and feel myself accepted by them again. I feel the sensation of wind and wait for the feeling of being pushed out, back to the tunnel and facility. But it doesn't come this time. This time I feel something else. I feel a tugging sensation that seems to want to drag me in all directions at once. As the world goes dark, I realize that I am somewhere else, and it is not the darkness of the tunnel. This is the darkness of a total void. There is darkness around me everywhere. Nothingness. I feel nothing under my feet, nothing to my sides. I can't touch or sense anything at all. I don't even know which way is up or down. It's as though I am all that exists. As I remain there, I just hear silence, not even the sound of my heartbeat. The blackness is so deep that I feel I can't distinguish between my thoughts and what is real. I hear screaming, but I can't tell if it's someone else or my mind screaming to fill this void. Try to move or cry out. Try to cry out. I hear my own shout in my head, but it doesn't seem to travel out into the abyss. It bounces in my head endlessly, like an echo down a long ancient corridor. I assume this is the place that Strickland referred to, the place between dimensions. This darkness could consume me if it wanted to. I try to will myself out of it, to have those shimmering lights spit me out, but it isn't happening. At this point, my mind starts to hallucinate. Or at least I think it does. Are they visions? My mind playing tricks on me? I can't tell. All I can do is watch. I see the logging site. There is an image of Tony's lifeless body after I pulled it from under the dozer. I see myself talking to Dennis, and he looks distraught as I tell him that Tony is gone. Then the scene rearranges itself, and I'm standing between Dennis and Marcus's gun. It changes again, and the shape of Marcus lies on the ground, still hell-bent on revenge even after I let him live. In my mind, I'm sobbing as I shoot off Dennis's hand, trying to convince myself it was the only way to save him, but he'll never forgive me. I try to let out a scream as Amy and I watch Dennis get blown apart by Barksdale's rifle, but there's still no sound. And just when I feel like I can't take any more of this, I see the man in that strange world begging for death. I watch as he's distorted and torn by those beasts. All of these things are flooding my mind, and it feels like my brain is vomiting. Yet in the midst of it all, I see what's really important, the switch. In my mind's eye, I see that glowing light in the tunnel, the one far ahead, small and distant. So Dennis was blown apart by the railgun. I thought he got blown apart by the explosions of the barrels. Huh. I mean, that still sucks, man. I'm sorry. That's a shit way to go. All right, let's try to focus on these lights. I focus my mind on the tunnel and the image of that flickering light. With a mental effort so strong that it is nearly a physical motion, I make myself envision that little light in the tunnel as if it were right there in front of me. With that, I feel the wind again, a light breeze that seems to come from everywhere. And then with a relief that I can only imagine feels like death, I move forward. I'm ejected from the void and am suddenly standing in the tunnel again. I let out a wail of triumph that turns into a bout of weeping. The weeping only intensifies when I see that light up ahead, a flickering blue light. Somewhere behind me I hear a crackling noise. I think of Amy down that way by the elevator. Have they reached her? There is no way I can find out. For now I have to keep on with my plan. Besides, if it works, we're all gone anyway. I feel like I can listen to get a better read on where they are, or I can just make a break for it. Just make a fucking break for it. We're right there. I don't even bother looking back. There's no time. Instead, I run with all my might straight ahead, my focus on that little blue light ahead of me. As I run, I see a different light, a white one, flickering in my peripheral vision. It's another of those shimmers that go to other worlds. It seems they are appearing and disappearing with more frequency now. Strickland was right. These things could reach the surface soon, unleashing more monsters. This thought makes me refocus on the blue light, the man-made light, the switch. The blue light gets closer, and as it does, I can make out a square shape around it. This has to be it. The familiar static scream of the monsters is much closer now. I have to be quick. I grip the gun tightly, knowing I only have one bullet remaining. The bullet that the man on the other world had wanted me to use to end his life. I run ahead into the darkness, my eyes locked on the switch that I assume is going to kill not only the creatures, but myself as well. As I approach, I see the lever. It's covered by a glass box that I will need to break. The blue light is directly beneath this, highlighting a series of tubes and wires that snake into the inner workings of the device. In the middle is blackness, not like a darkly colored part of the machine, but just a hole in reality. It looks like some sort of illusion. All the while, I can hear the static of the creatures coming up dangerously close now. I have no idea how much time I have. Turn around and defend, smash that glass. Let's get her done. I draw back the stock of the gun and smash through the glass box that houses the lever. The glass shattering is like music to my ears. I reach out for the lever, my hand grasping it. Without warning, I feel immense pain course through my body. It feels like fire racing down my back, causing me to fall to one knee in agony. There's only one of them, but I can see it. It blasts horrible static noise at me as I ready my gun. One bullet left. I'm very glad I didn't put that poor man in that other place out of his misery. I take aim and fire, my accuracy rewarded with a spew of white gas from the creature's core. It backs away, in defense or annoyance, I'm not sure. I start to turn back to the switch when I hear a second creature come gliding up behind me. Its tentacles melt into me and I scream. I can't help it. I sound like a wild animal. I can try to keep fending them off, or I can go for broke and just focus on the lever. Creatures be damned. Just go for it. We're right there. We're so close. I put all of my strength into my legs. The moment the monster is in front of me draws back its eel-like arms to grab me, I pivot backwards. My back strikes the machine, sending agony rocketing through my body. I'm so thankful I broke the glass before this moment, before the coming violence. I stretch out and grab the lever. With one last desperate scream that shreds my voice, I jam it down. The tunnel is suddenly filled with a flash of intense darkness. It expands from the switch, swallowing the matter around it. At first, I'm sure this is the end of me. I expect the darkness to consume me, followed by death. But then another shimmer of dancing white light appears next to me. There are more of those streams of light, rips in space like the ones that previously sent me to that other ungodly world in the void. With nothing else to do but die, I try to escape into the shimmer. When that stream of light envelops me, the expanding darkness of the switch is gone, and I feel a huge push. What in the hell? My body feels stretched, collapsing like I'm falling in all directions at once. The world goes white, and then there are the pinpoints of stars everywhere. One of them breezes directly by my right, and I see something that looks like a spiral galaxy distorted in its folds. To my right, I see an endless stretch of stars and gas clouds forming some galactic architecture. But beyond the immeasurable beauty, I notice something. I am seeing the same star patterns over and over. They are repeating like reflections in an endless mirror. Are these different versions of the same galaxies? The same realities? To my left, I see a calm blue world and can barely make out trees, familiar Kentucky trees that I have been around for the last few weeks. To my right, I see a copy, an orange world, and there are trees there as well, but something is strange, disturbing. As I zoom by, I'm not sure how much control I have in this unusual place, but if I can direct myself, it's worth trying. Try to head to the blue world, try to head to the orange world. Now, I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say the blue world has to be Earth, or at least a replica of Earth. And the orange world has to be that fucking hellscape we were on where the creatures rose from its depths. I'm thinking that has to be the creature's homeworld, or at least some sort of planet that they assimilated, because it seems like if they can come through multiple rifts, it's either multiple rifts are opening up on that one world, or multiple rifts are forming on multiple worlds. This could go either way with the way the story is directing us now in the aspect of sci-fi. So, I'm not going to go anywhere near the orange world, even though it's my favorite color. The fact that it's described as disturbing is just throwing up red flags. So we're heading to the blue world. You decided to head to the blue world. I try to focus my mind on heading towards the blue world, not knowing what to expect. My breath escapes me for a moment. Everything is dark and peaceful, and nothing hurts. I hope I made a right choice. Hey, we're back at the logging site. Something familiar for once. With breath back inside my body, I gasp and open my eyes. I'm back at the logging site. How? I'm not sure. Did the shimmers react with the implosion of the switch? Some other accident? I have no idea. I sit up right away and become instantly dizzy. Amy, I say. There's no reason to think that she survived whatever happened in that tunnel, but there's some sort of certainty that gets me to my feet. I wonder if I am somehow back in time before we found the facility, but what happens next makes me realize that can't be true. As I start walking forward, I feel a tremor in the ground. Somewhere off in the distance, I hear a metallic groan. The buried facility. It's being ripped apart under the ground by the activation of the switch. Trees are splintering and falling to the east, and I can see them going down like abstract dominoes. There's no way Barksdale and Marcus survived. Good riddance. I start to walk away in the opposite direction of the falling trees, but then hear a scream. A woman's scream. I turn back and see a stumbling figure come out of the trees. It's Amy, and she looks like a ghost. How is she here? Did she fall into one of the shimmers as well? I decide I don't care and run to her. I throw my arm under her armpit to hook her to me as we head back to the logging site. You okay? I ask. She can only nod through her tears. I look to the area where the facility tore the woods apart and see a large plume of smoke rising up into the air. We made it out of the facility alive, and that, I suppose, is the most important thing. It's then that I look up and notice the sky. The sky is beautiful and familiar, unobstructed by the trees that had been standing several minutes ago. I take my trusty hard hat off my head and exhale, letting my body relax. It's finally over. I'm not sure how long it will take me to get back to some semblance of a life, but I know one thing is for sure. Any day above ground is going to be a good day. The end. Tough it out. You and 64% of players didn't take the painkillers. Who survives? You and 67% of players chose to save Amy instead of Dennis. Mercy. You and 70% of players did not kill the man who asked for death. Going home. You and 83% of players headed towards the blue world and went home. Holy shit. That was intense. This story was so well written. It was like a book that I could not put down. A very good book. And it takes a lot to get me interested in reading. I'm not one to pick up a novel and sit down and flip through a few chapters here and there. The book has to grab me in every aspect, by title, by cover, by who wrote it, what it's about, what genre it is. Oh man, this was absolutely amazing. If you'd like to test out beta versions of our upcoming games, sign up for our newsletter. Thanks again. And then we just restart. Yep, and here's the beginning test, and there's the big old begin button. Oh man, this was an amazing game. I love games that allow me to interact with it in this fashion, and we get to mold and choose how the story plays out. And I like that it compares you with everyone else that plays this as well, so you can get a better understanding if you're in the minority or the majority. And it gives you a better insight as to what path other people choose. So let me know in the comments down below, what were your choices? What did you think about this story? And how did it end for you? Because now I'm kind of curious as to what would have happened if I went to the orange world. I'm still speculating that we had the two choices where the blue world is Earth, we go back home, and the orange world, I think, brings us back to where we found that man, Dr. Kana. And it's gonna resemble Earth, so it's kind of like they somehow assimilated the entire planet and their world molded into ours. So it gives the illusion of us being back at the logging site. But when we look back up at the sky, we just see the blue and orange from their home world. Oh, man, that would be crazy if that's the case. I wonder if I'm actually right on that. I'm pretty good at coming up with spot-on guesses like that. My mind can kind of wrap around pretty interesting concepts when it comes to sci-fi, because I like thinking of multiple possibilities of how things like this could turn out. But oh my god, this was very well done. And not only is it like a good book, but like I mentioned before, I think it was either in chapter 2 or chapter 3, towards the end of one of those chapters, that this could in fact be either a very good movie or a very good series. And I honestly would love to see either like an indie filming company or hell, even like a major Hollywood company pick this up and put it on the big screen. I would be absolutely infatuated with wanting to see it. I would be enthralled. I would be on the edge of my seat the entire time, because you get the option of choosing your own paths from time to time throughout each chapter. It would be interesting to see how they would actually go on a linear path with the story. Like, what choices would they choose to keep the story be consistent from beginning to end? And how noticeable would it be for us that have played this? We could sit there and be like, oh man, they made that choice instead of that choice. So now that's going to lead up to this, but what are they going to choose at that point? Oh man, so you would just be guessing the entire time. That's how you write a very good story. I applaud this company. They did a very good job. I apologize. I don't know exactly who wrote this, even though it said at the end, and I'm a dipshit and didn't pay attention. I was more interested in reading what they had to say and just getting back to this screen. Either way, people that made this game, you guys are amazing, and if you have any more games like this, I'm definitely going to look it up because I'm interested. I'd love to play more of it. It's a lot of reading. I will get that. And there were some typos here and there. That's probably the only con I could give about this game, especially with the sentence that repeated itself about claustrophobia setting in as you were going through the tunnel. That was very odd and almost threw me off. And there were some typos here and there where certain words didn't belong, and that kind of made me trip up a little bit when reading. But other than that, this was amazing. So if you're the type of person that likes a good story and you like the option of being able to mold your own adventure during said story, give this a go. It is one of the best things I've ever played and ever read through. I have nothing but praise for it. Very well done. Okay, that's enough out of me. I'm going to pause it right here. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then thrush your multiple on that like button. Keep playing it awesome, and I will see you all on my next adventure.